Los Grandes, the Grand Ones, a star-studded team filled with big names both domestic and imported, coached by Coach Stardust, who led the 2021 T1 team from LCK to Worlds. On paper, the 2023 Split 2 roster looked set to be a top contender, consisting of Bull, a local top lane talent on the up and up, Trick, the former G2 and SK jungler, 2-time EU MVP and 4-time EU champion freshly out from military service, Lava, LCK mid laner formerly of Fredit Brion, Netuno, AD carry playmaker and the 2023 Split 1 MVP, and last but certainly not least, Ranger, one of the GOATs of CBLOL, head of one of the biggest fan bases in Brazil, the Ranger Nation, freshly moved from the jungle to the support role in order to best utilize his game knowledge and shot calling.
Pega a Luluzinha pro pai.
Now 6 weeks into Split 2, and Los Grandes are in 8th place with 4 wins and 8 losses. They're desperate to get into playoffs with 6 games left, all against teams ranked above them in the standings. What on earth went wrong? Well, first off, the elephant in the room. The roster that started the season is not the current set of starters. Trick left after just 2 weeks of play, citing difficulty adapting to Brazil, replaced by NL from the academy team. A week later, Bull was swapped with Hidan, also from the academy team, for reasons undisclosed. Now it's easy to point fingers and say that obviously it's Trick's fault for leaving, or that Hidan isn't better than Bull, but is that actually true? I decided to look at the stats a little closer. We'll start with Trick versus NL. Despite the differences in pedigree, NL, the academy promotion, is actually doing just as well as Trick did in most metrics. Yes, NL has less kills, but he's also got significantly more assists while being similar in average deaths. His kill participation is higher as well, which speaks to a difference in roles for these players. NL is a facilitator. Trick was more of a carry player. It's also worth noting that Trick only played 4 games compared to NL's 8, and NL had to play in more losses, so props to him for having comparable stats while having more losses to his name. Now in regards to the wins and losses for these players, the only wins for both Trick and NL have been against the 2 teams ranked lower in the standings, Liberty and Kaboom. So I can't really say that Trick has a better win record than NL since he left so early. If it's not the jungle roster swap, are we then saying it's the top lane? A similar comparison of top laners actually shows that Hidan is currently doing better than Bull in almost every metric I look at. The only area where Bull did better was in the average death department, but even then, Hidan had a better overall KDA. The comparison between top laners was actually better and easier because both Bull and Hidan had played 6 games with an identical win-loss record. Again, wins only against Liberty and Kaboom. So, the role swaps from Los Grandes aren't statistically the problem, and Lava, Netuno, and Ranger are the brighter spots for this squad. So it doesn't look like it's a player issue. It had to be something else. Decided to start from the beginning and work my way through. And the start of any game of League of Legends is the draft. Quick look at what champions Los Grandes was playing showed that it was pretty meta. The only 2 unique picks to Los Grandes was a Samira pick for Netuno, which did contribute significantly to a loss against VKS in round 5, and a Blitzcrank pick for Ranger in the first game of the split against Kaboom. That was a win. Having eliminated draft for the current roster, I moved on to the early game. Now, Los Grandes hasn't been having the best early games. As of week 6, they're actually ranked 7th in the league for goal difference at 15 minutes with an average goal difference of negative 448. That's not significant. To put it in context, that's basically 1 Duran's item across the entire team at 15 minutes. In addition to that, 2 of the 3 teams ranked below them are Red Canids, who are currently at the top of the standings, and Furia, who are ranked just above Los Grandes at 7th. Furthermore, out of Los Grandes' 4 wins, 2 of them were from being behind at 15 minutes, while out of their 8 losses, 4 of them were from being ahead at 15 minutes. So it really doesn't appear that the early game matters much for Los Grandes or for CBLOL in general. It's also worth noting at this point that Los Grandes have the fastest games in CBLOL at 31 minutes and 5 seconds average time. So late game is not an issue for them because they don't usually get to the late game. So the only thing remaining is the mid game. Now, as mentioned before, Los Grandes had a lead at 15 minutes in about half their games, but on average was just ever so slightly down. So I wanted to see where things generally started going wrong for them because it wasn't the first 15 minutes. Looking at the gold graphs for the games, I came across a couple of interesting trends. First off, Los Grandes are generally fairly even till the 18 to 22 minute mark. Secondly, once Los Grandes started losing, they generally don't make a comeback. We'll start with the second point, because the first point is a bit more complicated and involved. Now, according to the goal graphs, there are only 3 games where Los Grandes managed to pull back from a goal deficit, and only one of those was an actual win. That win, round 1 against Kaboom. Around the 30-minute mark, where Los Grandes were losing, but they managed to turn a fight at the Elder Drake, and for context, it was not great setup. Bo actually gets picked before that fight, and Los Grandes had to pull off a 4v5, so not the greatest macro though, but pretty good micro from this team. Round 4 against Furia was the next game, and it's around the 34-minute mark we see them kind of claw back in gold. But the reality is, that was Furia pushing a little too deep at the inhibitor turret, so even though Los Grandes win that fight and get a bunch of gold, they're still too far down to turn things around. And round 6 against Fluxu, around the 31-minute mark, same scenario as before. Fluxu is pushing into Los Grandes' base, take a few too many turret shots, end up losing the fight, but they're still so far ahead it doesn't matter. So in other words, Los Grandes don't know how to play from behind. Well, that's the case solved, right? Oh, Los Grandes are losing because they don't know how to play from behind. Well, kinda not really, because you can avoid being in that position by not being behind. So the bigger question now becomes, what is putting Los Grandes behind in the first place? And that took a bit more effort because I had to go back and watch all their losses around the 18 to 22 minute mark. And there were 2 things I noticed from that as well. Firstly, Los Grandes did not look like they were on the same page, especially with the plays around the mid lane at that time period, transitioning to objectives. And secondly, they don't know when to cut their losses. Now, I had to watch all 8 games, but I'll spare you guys from doing that. And we'll look at 2 of their most recent games where Los Grandes was within 1,000 gold of their opponents at 15 minutes. So very, very close games at this point. First off, round 7 against INTZ. Los Grandes were actually up 947 gold at 15 minutes. Things were going well for Los Grandes till around the 21-minute 20-second mark, where Los Grandes is trying to split push with a 4-1 setup. Natuno, Ranger, Lava, and Enel are supposed to hold mid, but Natuno gets a little too hyphy and steps in front of his team. INTZ very quickly capitalizes on that. They force Los Grandes to scramble to reinforce mid with that catch. It breaks the split push, and unfortunately, before Los Grandes is completely there, even though everybody technically got out, Enel pulls the trigger on his Nocturne, and INTZ get the catch on the Los Grandes jungler, removing their smite. Keep in mind, we are post 20 minutes, Baron is on the table. Los Grandes opt to double down. They see INTZ on the Baron and they're trying to push them off, but with a numbers disadvantage and a lack of vision control, all they end up doing is losing yet another member of the team and Baron to boot. This quickly leads to multiple turrets going down and Los Grandes falling into a deficit that, well, as we've mentioned, they don't know how to climb out of. We see a similar situation in the round 9 game against Loud, where, again, close early game, Los Grandes were down a tiny little bit at 708 gold at 15 minutes, not significant. At around 20-minute mark, things are close and both teams are starting to jockey for position around the Baron. Unfortunately for Los Grandes, they are late to the party. Loud have laid down the vision around the area, and Lava gets caught on a ward. He's thinking he's got the flank, but he sat on a ward and he gets picked immediately because Loud knows ZZK isn't there. He's trying to clear a ward. And just like before, instead of just backing out Los Grandes, you've lost multiple members of the team, they still try and play cute with Loud at that Baron, and Loud just turn around, punish the diminished Los Grandes team. They pick up yet another kill, they pick up the Baron, and well, you know the song and dance. So as we can see from these Los Grandes' problems right now, they don't know how to play from behind. They are getting put behind because they lack coordination around the mid game and mid lane, and that hole gets big because they don't know when to cut their losses. Now, a simple fix could solve all 3 of these issues. If they fix their coordination around the mid game and mid lane, it would stop them from falling behind and would save them from having to cut unnecessary losses. Heck, it might even put them ahead in the game. Easy, right? Well, maybe not. Coordination takes time to train up, and Los Grandes are just about out of time. Either way, these are just a random minion's musings, and it's up to Los Grandes to step up to the name of the Grand Ones, or just be Lost Grandes.